Good morning, everyone. My name is Carrie. For those of you who don't know me, I am filming this on a rainy Friday morning. I have a nice warm cup of coffee here in my Be Still Plus Known mug. You guys have seen this before in many of my videos. It's one of my favorite mugs. Also, I was just telling my friend that one of my favorite parts about wearing a ring is that when I have a mug, it just like clicks against it and it's just really sweet and fun. It's one of those little things that just brings me a lot of joy. Today, I wanted to just share some thoughts, and I specifically have been feeling called to incorporate my faith into my journaling content, my YouTube channel more so. I find myself overthinking it, and I just was like, you know what? I'm not gonna let the enemy get in my way. I'm just gonna go for it and not have any crazy big plans and just see what happens. So, I was wanting to share some thoughts with you guys. From the other night, I went to a worship night that I go to every week, and one of the questions that they asked there was, what is your physical representation of God's faithfulness? And when I heard that, you know, there were a couple different things that crossed my mind and a couple different ways that I could answer it. But the thing that stood out to me the most was my stack of journals. I don't know if there's anything else in my life that is more of an obvious answer than my stack of journals for a representation of God's faithfulness. Journaling has been such a huge part of my life, and for those of you who don't know my backstory, I did not grow up a believer. I was actually raised Jewish, and I came to Christ kind of in the midst of high school. That's when I first started looking into Christianity, but I wasn't really sturdy in my faith until later on in college. And when I first started journaling, I was 6 years old. I was not a believer when I first started writing. I also started daily journaling when I was 14, which is here in my fourth journal here. So it wasn't until like right about here-ish when I first started looking into Christianity and exploring my faith. So my stack of journals not only serves as a representation of God's faithfulness because of what the actual journal entries say, because I've documented me just growing within the faith and getting to know God, but it also serves as that representation because of how God used me and wrote my story through me. The entirety of my journal stack has the whole story of my life. It really is wondrous to see how God was working in my life even before I knew Him. Maybe I'll go into the specifics in another video at some point, but just seeing all of the pieces of how I grew up, different aspects of my life, the things that I struggled with, the things that I succeeded in, having that all interlaced together in my journal entries, and then seeing how that led me into who I became, who I am now. It puts everything into context in a way that I was not ever expecting or anticipating when I first started journaling. When I read back on old journal entries, even the ones before I had a relationship with God, I can clearly see now how God was working in my life and using those things, using those hardships to guide me into where I am now today, or where I was in high school, in middle school, in college, in all of the different aspects and places of my life. It just gives this broader perspective, and it really is so special to see that even before I knew God, He was there in my life. Jesus was working. He was present. I just didn't know it. And having the spiritual growth written and documented in my journal entries is something so beautiful too, because I can see this shift in my life. Literally a shift when I started following Jesus. I'm not a perfect person, nor have I ever been, nor will I ever claim to be, but there is an undeniable difference that changed, that happened in my journaling throughout my time growing in my faith, where there is just this undeniable sense of gratitude and joy that I didn't have before. I've always thought of myself as a very optimistic person. Even throughout all of the hardships in my life, I usually will always look towards the light, and that was just magnified so much more when I started following Jesus. And then even looking back on past journal entries before I knew the Lord, it's so clear that the Holy Spirit was calling me, that God was calling me, and it's just this beautiful story of my life written down. It's an incredible testimony of God's faithfulness. I just feel so much gratitude. It almost makes me want to cry because it has really just changed my life in ways that I can't even describe. And when I look back on my old journal entries, I see this little girl. I mean, a 6-year-old girl. And you guys know, yes, I have a lot of silly and cringy journal entries that I've shared with you all. There's also a lot of journal entries that I haven't shared. A lot of things throughout my childhood and my teen years, and even now, that I haven't shared online just for privacy purposes. But I mean, even with the silly journal entries that I have shared, I can see how the Lord was using that. it really is humbling to have that hindsight is 2020 feeling where you look back and think, wow, so that's why God was doing what he was doing. And it all makes sense. Obviously, you're never going to have all of the answers, but the answers that I do have now, I'm just like, wow, what a beautiful, beautiful testament to the Lord's love and sweetness. It's just so crazy to just see how God was working. I mean, he was working. He always is working. But being able to see it from the stories within my life, a first-person perspective of me at different ages, being able to look back at that, wow. When I sat down to write each individual entry, most of the times when I'm writing, I'm thinking about my current thoughts. It is how I am currently thinking and viewing the world. Seeing that transition over the years, how those every single day journal entries combine together to show how I was molded into who I am now, I would have had no idea that my story would be written in this way. I was even just reading back on a journal entry from a few months ago, and I was like, wow, I do not remember writing this, but how special is it to see that that's where my heart was then, and this is where it's at now. I also love seeing how my journaling has shifted too, because I used to never pray in my journal entries. I didn't ever, because I used to never pray growing up. So as I started looking into faith, I would start writing to God. And some of those first journal entries like that are just so sweet because it was something that I didn't know how to do. I had never done before, and I just was trying it out. And seeing how my prayers in my journaling have grown over time as I've grown in intimacy with my relationship with the Lord, that's just so beautiful too. It's really neat that I have been able to use my journaling to grow in accountability in my faith and really track how I've been growing. There are so many journal entries that I have when I was questioning where I stood and what I should believe and not knowing all of those things. So many prayers and mixed feelings and just a lot of complicated emotions that I had felt of not knowing where to go or what to do or how to do it. And over time, as I continued to seek out the Lord, he made himself known to me. He was faithful in my search for him. He was there all along. I just didn't even know it. And I just had to get to know him. And it's just really sweet to see how I have been growing into this godly life that I had never known. And it just brings such an indescribable amount of joy to my life that I wish I could share with everybody. Obviously, there are still hard days and hardships and struggles, but man, when I look at how I cope with things with the Lord by my side versus the journal entries of before I had God in my life, oh my gosh, night and day difference. One of my favorite verses, it's a very common one. It's out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. It's such a great verse, and it's so true too. And you can use journaling too to evaluate that, because what you write is obviously not, you're not speaking it with your mouth, but you're writing it with, you know, what is coming from your heart and your head. So you can use your writing to examine how you speak to yourself or about yourself. When you're writing, it's your words, obviously. And when you go back and reread journal entries, you can examine your heart and see, you know, how am I writing? What is my heart posture like? Am I using my journal to complain about all the little inconveniences of my day? Or am I writing in my journal the different things that made me joyful throughout the day? When I write about hardships, how am I viewing it? Am I seeking the Lord for guidance? Something I have shared that I'm so guilty of is I often will go to writing about how tired I am, how much I can't wait to go to bed. And even right now in this season of my life, as I have these amazing, beautiful things on the horizon, I have found myself feeling kind of stuck where I am and just really anticipating what's to come. And I can see that in my journaling, and I can think, you know, I really am not living in the moment as presently. I'm clearly just trying to get all my work done. I'm so tired. I'm trying to get to bed, and I'm excited for what's to come after college once I graduate, which is an understandable feeling. But at the same time, I can examine that and be like, okay, I need to make sure I'm living each day to see what the Lord is wanting me to receive from this day. This is not a period of waiting. It's a period of preparation. It's a period of learning. It's a period of goodness because it's from the Lord. And you can be honest in your journaling about your struggles, about your doubts and temptations, or whatever it may be in your life that feels hard. You can be honest with yourself and with the Lord and just surrender them to Him. Surrender those thoughts and feelings to Him, to the pages of your journal. And you can use your journal to cultivate a spirit of gratitude, a heart of gratitude. And just like I was able to track my spiritual journey in my journals, I can also track just my human growth as a person in my journals. I can write about things I learned at church or in my devotional time or at my worship night, or even just in conversation with a friend. Having a string of stories woven together of the things in your life that was important to you, what you learned, how you grew, it creates a written testimony of who we are as people and how the Lord was faithful. And it reveals to me ways that God was working in my life without me even realizing. Starting from when I was a little girl, when I didn't even know that He was calling me, and even now in the day-to-day, things that I pray for, I can see He answers those prayers. He gives me hope for the future and what's to come, and gives me joy in my everyday. And He also reveals to me things that I need to work on in myself. When you're honest in your writing and you're honest with yourself, and you're honest with the Lord, He's gonna reveal how desperately we need to rely on Him and need Him, because man, we are imperfect people, and that's okay, and that's beautiful. But it is something I'm really grateful for, and it's something I don't take for granted, especially because I knew what life was like without Him. And wow, life is just so much grander with the Lord. Anyway, this was definitely a little rambly chit chat video, but I just wanted to share that with you guys. But I was thinking of maybe doing some sort of series of some kind with, you know, journaling with Jesus, maybe showing how I write about prayers. I don't know, I'm not sure. And there is a part of me that doesn't know how to go about doing that just because of how intimate it is. I honestly have been trying to work on praying aloud in front of other people because I get a little nervous, a little hesitant when I go to pray in front of anyone that's not my husband or myself. And I'm trying to get over that like little fear that I have and push myself to be bold in my faith. But I think the reason for that little fear that I'm trying to get over is because it's an intimate thing to pray to the Lord and to allow somebody a window into those prayers. It can feel a little nerve-wracking to me, but I trust that the Lord gives me words to speak and will give me a boldness in my faith. And the same thing goes for sharing this online. It's a little intimidating to let people have a window into my journaling life as well as my faith life, but I have been wanting to do some sort of series of some kind. So if you have any ideas, definitely comment them down below. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Got my little clink on the mug, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.